Jon Jones and Ciryl Gane, what do we expect? What do we expect here, guys? Let me tell you how I feel about the fight, and just let me know if you can relate. Okay, Jon Jones is going to whip him. The end. I mean, basically, I get up and I leave there. Okay, but what part am I curious about? What do I mean Jon Jones is going to whip him? Do I believe that Jon Jones can finish him? Do I believe that Jon Jones can outstrike him? Jon Jones seems to have a trick that we will see every single fight. He seems to have a move that we will see in every single Jon Jones fight that he usually even does at the beginning of the fight that nobody's ever seen before. There's a rule in fighting that if you go ahead and throw kicks, but you finish with a kick. Okay, so you'll start your combination with your hands. If you're going to do a kick, you will do it last. You will do it at the end of the combination. I've seen Jon Jones start a fight before, walk out there where most guys will reach up and they'll touch gloves. Jon will walk out there and kick you right in the head. I mean, I've seen that. I've seen Jon Jones start fights with flying knees. I saw Jon Jones in a stand-up position do like this arm lock to Glover Teixeira that changed Glover for the course of the evening. They were on their feet, and he hooks his arm. You guys remember that one? He turned his bicep, and I mean, Glover couldn't even use the other hand and punch him. He had to come down here and engage. It was just one of these goofy things. But it was also to be expected from a Jon Jones fight, something new, a nuance, something that's really hard to prepare for, something to keep the opponent guessing no matter how much footage and tape the opponent and his coach and his strategist have sat down and watched leading into the event. So when I say that I think Jon Jones is going to go run over him, what do I mean? We have Ciryl Gane, who just got out-wrestled 2 fights ago by a guy who never had a wrestling match. And we have Jon Jones, who won a national collegiate championship. Those are hard details to get around. Now, I could take you back to Saturday. You had Islam Makhachev, who is from the deepest, most respected region on earth for wrestling, Dagestan. Take on a guy who never had a wrestling match in Volkanovski. And it's really hard to ever get around that. You'd have a really hard time looking through history and getting around that. But I think if we went back to Saturday, we can also see there's a little bit of room for error in that. There's a lot of things that can be made up and turned over in the practice room where you don't have to have a singlet. You don't have to grow up at the Pee-wee tournaments, coming up through the cadets, the juniors, hoping to get a college scholarship. And we are seeing where that starts to change. And I'll tell you this, they love to say that the last thing to go is your power. I personally do not agree with any of that. That is just an expression that has been around our sport, and it's been here for enough decades and generations that we let it in. The power is the last thing to go. But I will tell you what, the takedown is the first thing to go. If you are not fighting and you are not active and you are not busy, no matter how good you did in your youth at wrestling, the first thing that you will lose is your ability to wrestle. And Jon Jones was wrestling less and less as his career was winding down. Jon Jones, when he had his back against the wall, and he had to dig and he had to find that special tool, when he was really in trouble, started to turn to kickboxing. That special tool was becoming elbows and knees. It was becoming lefts and rights more often than it was single legs, double legs, slide bys, and duck unders. And I think one of the great skills of Jon Jones is his ability to know when it's time to win. Urgency. I have not seen that from Ciryl Gane in a number of his fights. And I've seen Ciryl look good at times. I mean, a lot of you are saying he's 1-1 in his last 2. What's he even doing in a world title fight? I understand that. But there is times within Ciryl's career where it's been very close and all he needs to do is put his foot on the gas. And he hasn't been able to do that. He lacks that urgency. So when you're fighting with a Jon Jones and we start to break down, what is this going to look like? So often and so many times, and it's a little bit early on, we keep on talking about the great wrestling of Jon Jones, the non-wrestling of Ciryl, the great stand-up of Ciryl, and the lack of stand-up by Jon Jones. I just don't know if that's accurate. I mean, that feels lazy to me. It's not a kickboxing match. Jon does very well with stand-up fighting. It's not a grappling match. The last thing to go might be your power, but the first thing to go is going to be your wrestling. Ciryl's not a master of taking people down. But Jon hasn't been looking for the takedowns. I mean, I just feel as though this really does counter itself out a lot. A lot of the arguments you make, an opposite argument could also be made. This is going to be a fun match. Ciryl must, absolutely must, take control of this match in the opening frame. The first person to touch the other person is going to win this fight. If Jon Jones, like he always does, comes out and kicks you in the mouth, comes through the air, jumps up and knees you in the head. If Jon Jones goes first, he will put you on the defense no matter who you are, and you will defend for the duration of that fight. If you go out and you put him on the defense, you take control of the dance. The one thing that everybody is scared to do because they respect Jon so much. But there's not a third option, guys. You're either leading or you're following. That's it. These aren't Chael's rules. These are fight rules. It's action or it's reaction. You have to choose. Everybody has always stood around and waited on Jon. Whenever there's an urgency, Jon feels it. Whenever there's a time to get tough and hang on to a championship, Jon always wants it a little bit more than his opponent. I don't think this is about striker versus grappler. I really don't. If your power is the last thing to go, the takedown is the first thing to go, and these two are a lot more even than you might think.